Hi, Berdette. Welcome to the Spiritually
Hi.
Active podcast.
Hello.
So excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
It's been cool to just catch up with you and, our little pockets of life and breath work that we do
hmm
together. So I'm really
hmm
excited for you to share your perspective and story on today's episode. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, thanks so much, Caitlin, for having me. I'm excited. I needed this. I need this reconnection.
Good. All
Soul
right. Me
sister
too.
time. Soul sister time.
Yay. Yeah, we'll see how long it takes us.
I know,
I
right?
I'm always like, oh my god, this is only gonna take an hour or so, and then I'm like, oh, 2 hours
Uh-huh.
later, we've just been gib
Uh-huh.
gabbing. So,
Yep. Yep.
a question that I ask all my guests at the very beginning of each episode, that I love to hear your perspective on, is: Are you spiritually active?
I believe I am spiritually active, but I also believe it's a fluctuation of the level of activity that I'm in. So it
Mm,
always changes. It's always shifting. It's always in the forefront, and sometimes it's in the back. Sometimes it's very like visible, and sometimes you really gotta kind of weed through all the layers and mud to find it. But it is always activated. It's just definitely
mm,
has its own language at different times of my times of my life, but it's also like day to day. It's very different in how I'm activated. And I used to, like in the very beginning of spiritual activation, it's very you can just feel it every like moment, every energy, every like something that you come in with, you're like, oh, that's it, that's that feeling, that's that download. I can feel it. It's so powerful and transformative. And then
mm,
you get to a place now where it's just your everyday, just
yeah.
every day, like sitting outside today, this morning, and having the sun on me, and I closed my eyes, and this cool breeze was across my face, and it was just a few degrees cooler than kind of the whole air around me, and I just felt
Yeah.
this cool breeze across my face. And it was in that moment that I was like, I'm spiritually activated. That
Mm,
activated me. Just that, but it's like just those simple things, and it's just there's something. And like you said earlier, where when we were talking, there's no words. You can no
yeah.
longer explain the downloads or the
Ah,
feelings. It's just present.
yeah, I love that. And I think what, I've observed in getting to know you is just like the gratitude for those moments too, of like they
hmm
can be so subtle, but they can feel so big for us as humans.
Yeah,
And so that's just like such a
definitely.
grounding yet uplifting feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what does being spiritually active mean to you, or what are some of the different ways that you enjoy connecting with your higher self? What do those modalities look like?
Definitely for me, it's grounding, it's being outside. Nature is like
Mm,
the thing that I was actually never someone that would like go outside and just like that, like, oh look, there's a breeze, or oh look at the trees.
yep.
One of the biggest things that I've noticed since when my spiritual journey started to become like an awareness, because I believe my whole life I've been on a spiritual journey, and
Of
I know
course.
that I've had circumstances, and I've been, there's certain things that's happened in my life that definitely was like a spiritual encounter. But there wasn't an awareness of it. But since my awareness started, there's this thing that happens where I can be
Mm,
outside and the leaves or the trees move, and I know that they're communicating with me. Like I can just hear what they're saying, and it's just this like
mm,
unspoken connection between me and trees, or me and anything, the breeze, the air, the sun. It's like that interconnectedness, and that to me is kind of what is my spiritual activation. It's what activates
mm,
me. And also a lot of like alone time. I'm always somebody that's very social. I've always been very busy, lots of
yeah.
friends. And this last year has been a lot of just me time, like
Yeah.
really kind of disconnecting from those superficial relationships that was serving some need,
Mm,
you know, where that we all write about it a lot. You start to transform, you change, and then all of a sudden these relationships starts falling away, and you start like
yep.
where's everybody at? where are all my friends at?
Yeah.
Now I've kind of passed that point of where did everybody go to like really appreciating this time with just me, my higher self.
That's beautiful and really difficult to make time for, honestly. You know, you're a busy woman, so I just love hearing that you're like,
Yeah.
I get that time, that
I
energy
get
back.
that time. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Cool. Well, I know you fairly well, but I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, kind of where you're at now.
All right. So I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I've been a labor and delivery nurse my whole entire life, and that I'm not saying that as like over exaggeration, but I actually became a nurse at the age of 17 years old. Now that I have teenagers, I do not know how I was taking care of people at 17, but um, I worked in the postpartum, antepartum, and newborn nursery at 17,
Wow.
and that's all I've ever done was nursing. I've dibble-dabbled in like different areas of nursing, but I've always had this passion, and really reflecting back since I was a young, like little girl, I always wanted to be a nurse. So it's definitely my sole purpose. What I've been created for is to just serve women and help bring life into this world in the most gentlest, kindest, loving way. And I think that as nurses, we tend to forget the power we have over the human experience. And for me, it's just kind of what's my driving force is how can I transform the experience of birth? How can I transform and change the way we enter new life? We would say like earthside when we create earthside life into this world, and the importance of that first experience, like our first encounter, like our first human encounter, and how powerful
Oh,
nurses are, that how we can really just make it a beautiful one or a really tragic one. And so I really right now, and why I do what I do, so I started a company 2 years ago, which was really about, I don't even know where to start. It's so long. I came about this, but it really came through like I've always been a nurse. I've always done labor and delivery. I always
yeah.
loved taking care of patients. I felt like I was in my place. When I was in the delivery room, I was completely whole. And I don't know if you can relate, but you kind of have these two people, right? You have this like person that's busy with life, and you're at work and you're at your kind of like corporate job and you just do your work, and then
Yep.
you come home and then you're your true self. And sometimes you have to wrestle with like some difficult truths about you when you're at home, because you can't put on that face
Yes.
like you do at work. And but when I was in the delivery room, it was the only time in my whole entire life that I felt whole. Like I felt purposeful. Like this is why I'm here. This is who I am. And I was 100% confident in the work that I did. Never doubted, never guessed, never wondered if I was good enough. But in every other aspect of my life, I've always struggled with self-confidence. As a mom, as a spouse, as a friend, any place in my life, I've struggled with self-confidence and self-worth. But you put me in the delivery room, not an ounce,
You
not
know
an
what
ounce
you're.
of doubt. Yeah,
Yeah.
I not only did I know what I was doing, I was confident that I was going to give the person that I was caring for a beautiful experience. So over the last 2 years, I was trying to figure out like what makes it, why am I different? Why do some nurses like go into a delivery room and they have this, poor outcome, or the patient seems to be very stressed, or the baby's
Sure.
not tolerating labor, or they have a C-section. But then there's a group of us that have these like beautiful deliveries. Very rarely are they negative in all aspects, from labor, delivery, the recovery. It's just this beautiful kind of flowy experience. And so about 3 years ago, I started paying attention to it. I'm like, what makes us different? And what I figured out was it was the energy. Nothing about like what we know or what we can learn in a textbook
Sure.
or watch or process or protocol, but it was the energy that we were entering into these rooms, and we were shifting that in each room. So our energies was shifting the energy of the people we were caring for. So
Yep.
it's like this unspoken care that we were giving. And so what I was trying to do is like, okay, but how do I bring this to other people? How do I teach other people? How do we like, if I can transform and can give a woman or family a positive birth experience, and I can decrease their traumatic, because you may or may not have heard that 45% of women suffer a traumatic birth experience. 45% of women.
I just got shivers.
Yeah.
I didn't know
so
that.
It's
yeah.
tragic, but it also tells you how resilient we are as women. That we can, 45% of us can suffer that and get up and care for our children and overcome that traumatic experience, which is life-altering. So there's definitely an awareness starting to come out in women's health that is saying, hey, we're being traumatized. And a lot of that comes from the, taking away our control, taking away our power, and the people caring for us not meeting us where we're at. We have a life journey. So we've lived a life that has brought us to the moment of delivering our child, and each one of us is different. Our journeys have been different that brought us to that experience. And we just don't fit in the box that healthcare wants us to fit into. We can't check boxes to give us a beautiful delivery because all of us are so different. So for what may be okay for one woman, may be traumatic for another. So really is I guess healthcare workers or birth workers, we need to meet each individual person, each individual human where they're at, and that is really part of that. I know you talked a little bit about the human experience, and that is the human experience, is seeing each individual person as their own self and needing things differently than the person maybe in the room next door that you're caring for. So through my company, MB&Spheres, I created a assessment to kind of balance, because that was kind of the first part of my company, is like, how do I first understand why one person can have a delivery one way and the next nurse can have a delivery another way, but we kind of do about the same thing. And I mean, we all, when we go in a hospital, we all have like this protocol and processes that we have to.
Of course.
Yeah, so I was like, how, what's the difference? And so that was the first, which I figured out was energy. The second was like evaluating the patient themselves, the family themselves, and realizing that people, if there was an imbalance between, if we're having a human experience, we need to have that whole experience through the mind, body, and spirit. But if one of either our mind is full of anxiety, or our body is not healthy and it's out of shape and we don't understand what's needed, or our spirit, which a lot of people aren't spiritually activated and understand how much the spirit is in charge of that labor and delivery.
Absolutely.
We're made to believe it's our mind and what we think and how we feel, but it's not, it's our spirit. So really activating the spirit. So what I was finding is the women that would come in with knowledge, understanding, they did stretching, yoga during labor or during pregnancy. They watched their diet. They ate certain foods that was healthy and empowering to them. And then their spirit, they meditated, they practiced gratitude. They had a level of understanding of the importance of the divine feminine. When those women were coming in to deliver, their labors were going very quickly and they were progressing. And so I started to really connect the dots. And I thought, hey, let's just try and see.
Wow.
So then I started, consciously nursing. So I would go into a room and I would then help each individual patient activate, balance mind, body, spirit. And then I started seeing my deliveries were going super fast, super quick. And so then I just kind of put that into a new model of care, and that's kind of where my company started from.
Beautiful. I love that. And what's crazy, I mean, I have yet to have children, right? It's definitely something of interest to me at some stage in my life. But I think what's so interesting about that is the not only holistic list of mind, body, spirit, but also the before, the during, and the after. You often hear a lot of women talk about, like, okay, we get to the place I'm about to give birth and we do it, and then they send me home. Right. And you also hear a lot of women struggle with all sorts of things, particularly after, having birth, right? Whether it's postpartum depression or even body dysmorphia, right? As their body
Right.
kind of recollects itself and shapes in a brand new way as a mother. And so I just think it's beautiful that you're not only thinking about like, I think about the dimensions like up and down, but
Right.
you're also thinking about the dimensions like time lengthwise, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and you say that you like in the future you are that's something, but right now the preparation of the
Yeah.
healing the womb, calling your child spirit, and really connecting now is just as important because that we're all interconnected. I truly believe that the spirit of your children are already like just like ancestrally, like they're all there. And to know that right now you can really have that connection with your future children, the spirit of your child, and prepare for that. I always say, I tell my daughter, she's not going to have, she's 28, she doesn't want, well, she's starting to think she may want children, but prior she didn't want any children. I said, but you want to create an environment for your child even to implant in, like at a cellular level. We want to heal ourselves, we want to heal our spirit. So at the time of conception, that all that work's already been done, and then you're creating life in the most homeostatic environment of your womb. That doesn't happen. Like a lot of us think about it, right? We're like, oh, I'm pregnant. Oh, now I have to eat well. Now I have to do things.
Yes.
But those cells have already started to multiply. So doing that before just optimizes your child's health long term.
And your own.
And your own.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we all want to be healthy, but I think a lot of us think, if my spirit is activated prior to conception, then the spirit of my child will be even deeply connected to my spirit. Versus, I don't really do anything with my spirit, and I don't believe in it. There's some people that's like, I don't even believe in it. I've had friends tell me I see having a baby like going to the hospital and getting your gallbladder taken out. Like that superficial, like just a procedure. I'm like, and there's actually like studies that are coming out about like what the mother is enduring at time of conception and through pregnancy will directly affect the child and their neurological and emotional growth. So if you are conceived in a high anxiety, high stressed mother, then your offspring, your child, will actually be more at risk for anxiety and depression if you're suffering that at conception and during pregnancy. Like, that's huge.
I definitely believe that. And I so resonate with what you're saying about calling in, your spirit, your baby or baby's spirits. You were there when we were in Sedona together for that breathwork experience I had of like, I think I know I just met my future baby. And the processing associated with like, whoa, there really is a plan or a divine way about this that like it's hard to watch people not appreciate that sometimes, right? Like if that's the way you think about things, that's totally fine. But why not lean into the super just like woo-woo concept that comes with pregnancy and delivering a child? You're literally bringing life into this world. There's nothing more magical than that. I honestly couldn't name anything. Yes.
Like the depths of spirituality and birth is like, I mean, that's it. It's top level. There's nothing more than that. Is creating life, creating spirit, and then birthing spirit. That's a powerful ability. And so what I'm really trying to do, and it's what you just said, like if people choose to see birth as just that, that's their choice. I think my biggest passion is like I want to tell people like I can transform your experience. Like I can transform your experience. And then having to really back away from that because they're not ready or they don't want to hear or they don't believe in the woo-woo. But it is really hard to sit back and watch people suffer and struggle and have 45% birth trauma when it's preventable. Most of
Right.
that trauma is preventable. Not all of it. Some things happen, unfortunately, that are out of anyone's hands,
Of
and
course.
to no fault of anyone. And we also just need to be there for those women so we can then
Absolutely.
still heal and balance their mind, body, and spirit as they move. You know, we know that they'll be resilient. We know that they'll heal from it, but there still needs to be some sort of, I don't know, avenue, some sort of something. And there's really just kind of, like you said, we just get sent home. Like, have a nice
Yeah.
baby. Then we got to
Yeah.
navigate.
Oh, I love that. Have a nice baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, MB&Spheres is definitely was about like from, let's say, Caitlin, you calling your spirit baby, coming to a place of balance in your mind, body, and spirit. So when that spirit chooses to then become earthside, that you're in your complete balanced state. And that child then heals, you heal so many levels of generational trauma at that moment, right? You won't pass
Ugh.
down to your children what you suffered and what your mother
Yes.
and your grandmother and every other generation suffered, because you have an awareness, you've balanced, you've healed, and you've created a different environment. It's almost like you shifted for generations in that moment.
Yes.
And I think that is like so powerful. Like you can shift generations of trauma.
Yes. I think that resonates so deeply with me too, because it's like our whole job is not to heal as humans, right? Like that is just a natural process that we get to choose to go through, and sometimes it happens super organically as well. But I think there's just something special about becoming a mother, and to your point, providing not only physically and emotionally a space that is safe. Like over the weekend, at my retreat, we talked all about this idea of safety and creating a container of love and support, and not projecting your shit literally onto another human. But I also think it's important, like energetically, that stuff sticks around. Energy doesn't lie. It's like one of my favorite things to say. When you feel something, you feel it. And your baby is intelligent by right, as it is too, and so your babies, however many are in there, there's so much sensing and feeling that's going on during the process of becoming a mother and becoming a child. Like, it sounds cheesy, but they're in there just as much as you're in it as the person carrying. So,
and I think it's like, we hear right now, we hear it a lot actually, is healing our the wounds of our childhood, right? Our childhood, like a lot of people are into that. And I'm like, man, if only my mother healed her generational trauma. It is so evident as an adult. And the older you get, the more you see that cycle happening. It may be in a different, like,
way.
almost like it's a different way, but it's still similar to those generations. I'm like, if only my mom took care of her shit before she, you know what I mean? Like, if only I took care of my shit before I had my kids. And now, I have to apologize to my children. Like, I'm so sorry. I mean, we didn't know. We only know what we knew at that moment. But now we know. Now we know, like, heal yourself, balance your mind, body, spirit prior to pregnancy, and then continue to work towards that balance throughout your whole pregnancy, delivery, recovery, postpartum period, and then so on forever. Because then by that time, it's just a habit, right? That's just what you do. And it's so simple. I think to balance your mind, body, and spirit, it's not rocket science. It's simply like what I did today, which is to sit outside and get some sunlight and allow the breeze to come across my face.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like, it's that simple.
And it can look different for everybody. You just have to let yourself find those things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But then also having someone that can at least give you an idea, like how important was it in the beginning of your spiritual journey that you had those mentors or somebody that you really trusted and that you really believed because of their own happiness or their own journey, that you trusted what they were saying when they said, hey, Caitlin, this really worked. You're like, okay, let's try it. And you're like, wow, this is powerful. This is more than and so that's really what the company's about, and what me and the other nurses that work in the company we're about, just guiding. That's what we are. We're just guiding people to a direction that they can figure out, and they can have this sense of awareness and understanding that simple things that you can do every day, but those simple things add up to be like greater things. Once you put all those things together, it's like it's transformative in your whole experience.
It's magical.
Yeah.
I think, without these words coming out in what we're discussing, like there is an essence to your company of like tuning into your female intuition, right? And knowing what feels good for you, physically, energetically, emotionally. And as you mentioned earlier, like you were 17 when you started this work, truly. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, like, what was the intuitiveness for you to say, I'm going to step into this nurse doula? I'm not sure if there's a difference, so you might have to share that.
Yep.
But like, I'm going to step into bringing these babies earthside. Like, what was that call? What did that feel like for you? In case anybody listening is like, I think I want to do this with my life, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think for 17, it was just kind of it was more of a draw. I wouldn't say it was something that was like this big, epiphany that came. It's like, oh, this is what I have to do. It was kind of like, yeah, I want to take care of babies. It was very simple, very, drawn to that, very easy. My path in life, if it's an easy path and doors open, I completely intuitively believe that that's the direction I'm supposed to go in. I never really need to understand it. I just know it. Yeah. And that's how I've lived my whole life. And the times that I have pushed doors open were the times that I regretted the choices I made. But with that, in labor and delivery and in obstetrical care, it's always been doors wide open for me. Never had to knock a door down. And so for people that have that feeling, that desire, that pull, that's all you need, is just that pull into that direction. Because not everybody has it. There's a lot of nurses that go through school and say, I never want to do this.
Yep.
Ever. I have no desire. They know instantly. Yeah, so if you have a pull, that's really all you need to trust and to know that that's probably the direction you should go in.
I love that. The differentiation between knowing and understanding is something I'm like really processing right now, of like, okay, you know things. You as a human being just know things.
Right.
And you don't always need to understand how you know those things. Like you can give yourself permission for those pulls, those thoughts to just exist and be, because they're meant for you to hear and feel and have. And I think that's so magical, because to your point, like life doesn't come without challenges, especially in pursuing a career, right? Like I'm sure you've had moments where you're like, oh shit, like this is hard, or this is, emotionally challenging and taxing. But the way you describe it makes it feel not easy, but aligned. And that sounds like such a beautiful feeling to have.
One of the things, the way that I've actually, probably since September of last year, have chosen to live my life, in the beginning has been a lot more challenging than it is now. Now it's becoming more of an easy way of living. But somebody told me once that there is no right or wrong in any decision you make. Every decision, regardless of the outcome, was meant for growth and understanding. So no longer do my choices, there's no right or wrong choices. So whatever I choose, it was the choice that I was supposed to make in that moment to understand and grow the way I'm supposed to grow, my own path, nobody else's. So trusting that now, and I'm in a really big time in my life where I have to make some major changes, and I have great opportunity in different directions. And people are like, well, what are you going to do? Like, my brain naturally, like everybody, wants to go to the what if. What if I choose this and this happens, and what if?
Oh, gosh.
But now I can say, it is what it is. Now, if I go back to my 17-year-old self and say, here's a pull, this is a draw, and the door's wide open, and so I'm going to walk through it, and then I go to myself now, and I say, I use that same feeling, but then I also intertwine there's no right or wrong. It's just the choice that's right for me. And that choice will bring me growth and understanding, even in those painful moments, right? So even through suffering, there's growth. And then that has kind of been the way recently that I just choose to live my life. And there's so much peace when it comes to that, because you're not worried anymore. You just really aren't. You're not worried about anything.
Yeah. Ooh, imagine that. Oh,
it's definitely
beautiful.
a practice, though. It's like I have to constantly be like, what if this? I'm like, nope, it's what it is. It is what it is. It'll be what it'll be. And I have to trust the process. And, in labor, it's very much that same mentality that you just have to trust the process, trust your intuition. What we call that is, the divine feminine has to kind of be in the forefront of delivery. Is you have to know, the divine feminine is the nurturing, the intuition, the trusting.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you have to have in labor. And understanding, one of the things that I've actually been starting to tell my patients that are laboring is trust. Whatever your body is telling you to do, whatever you think or feel you should do, that's sounds, movement, request, whatever that is, don't doubt for a second, just do it. And so I've had people in this, I can say one of my last deliveries, she had things planned out. She had a birth plan. And I glanced over it, but I didn't really look at it, because birth plans for me are, I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. Like, you're going to guide. And so when I went in, I said to her, you're going to guide this whole experience. And I'm going to just be your advocate. I'm going to be the one that's going to be here to make sure that your experience is your experience, and that I protect you, and that you're safe in this experience.
Beautiful.
And I told her the same thing. Trust whatever your body's telling you to do. So, first baby, she went from nothing to delivery in 5 hours. 9-pound baby.
Oh.
So, and it was
a big
really
baby.
her trusting, and just, Caitlin, I'm completely not like saying that but that's probably 75% of my deliveries are that way. Like,
wow.
Exactly. Very quick. It happens because the minute we as humans feel safe,
yes,
and the minute we know that we're in control, we no longer have to fight or worry or fear, and we can just be, and we can allow and trust the process, our bodies just take over, and we can just go and do what we're meant to do. We're meant to have
I was about to say, talk about intuition. Like, your body has its own almost in a process like that. It's just going to do what it's naturally built to do.
And we need to allow it. But,
yes,
if we let our mind take over, we're like, oh no, this is silly. I don't want to get up in this position, or I don't want to make this sound, or I don't want to ask for this. I don't want to be too difficult, or am I too difficult, or am I overreacting? There's all these thoughts. But if you can actually just let that go and just trust and be empowered to request whatever you need to request, it doesn't need to make sense to anybody else. So the positions that she were in was very difficult for me, because I had to monitor the baby, and I'm like, my hand's cramping, but she had to be in that position. Like, she had to be in it. And so I couldn't make her feel like the position was difficult for me, because this wasn't my experience, it was hers. Right. So I just then followed her move, followed her choices, and then after it was over, she said to me, the whole entire pregnancy, I was so fearful that I would have to get here and fight for what I wanted, to have the delivery I envisioned.
Oh, I just got the shivers.
And she said, you gave me everything I wanted and then some, by just allowing me to, trust. And I didn't have to fight or advocate for myself once, because you just allowed me to take kind of the lead in the whole thing, and that made so much of a difference. And the significance of that was, I know for a fact that she did not suffer birth trauma, that she was not part of the 45% of women that suffer birth trauma.
Yeah.
It could have been very different for a lot of reasons. Because of my experience, I knew that a lot of her choices could have been taken away from her, because I didn't follow protocol. So to follow protocol would have taken away her Meaning, when I say I didn't follow protocol, I want to say that, but I didn't
Right.
make it easy
It's
for
not
me.
the conventional, you got to be in this
Conventional way,
position
right?
doing this. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It wasn't easy. It was hard. I had to stay by her bedside all the time. And
Yeah.
um, and so I know that I transform her birthing experience to be a positive one, and that that's something
Mm-hmm.
that she may never understand the significance of that because she had nothing to compare it to.
Yes.
You know, she just
Yeah.
had a great birth experience. But
But
for
what an
me,
honor.
right, and that I feel like I transform her experience, her memory of this moment for the rest of her life will only be a
Mm.
positive memory. And I think that's like so powerful and so cool. And one of the things that I'm, used to always wonder when it comes to my company, which I think a lot of us fall into this mindset of, what is success? What is success for a
Mm.
company owner? And success for a lot of people is numbers and how big and how fast we grow and recognition, um, and how big our name is. And, that's success for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And, 6 months ago, that's what I was kind of basing my success or failure of, because I'm not very big. I don't have a lot of people. I don't have big numbers. But I recently shifted my thought. And that moment when I drove home, I am the most successful business owner because I transformed that
Oh,
person's life. So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's so beautiful. Wow. Wow. And that baby's life too.
And that baby,
And
the whole family. The
yeah,
whole
I was about
family.
to say, the partner involved in that process is probably so grateful as well.
Right.
It's
Right.
just so beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm completely honored that I was given that opportunity and that I was able to be at that moment with that person and that family and that
Mm.
baby, and that I'll forever be a part of their story. So to me, I'm like, I just think it's the coolest job ever.
Oh, chills. Honestly, it's so cool. Um, can you share some other? So it sounds like, building that safety, that container is a huge strategy of yours. And we've
Mm-hmm.
talked a little bit about the pre and the post birth. Can you share a little bit more about a strategy or two that you use to help continue creating that container for those patients or those new moms who are like, okay, now what? How do I maintain this mind, body, spirit connection that sounds perfect and lovely, but in reality, becoming a mom, whether it's the first time or the 15th
Mm-hmm.
time, can be really
Mm-hmm.
challenging. Each one
Right.
comes, I'm sure, with a different perspective, a different energy
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're speaking so it's a constant, I guess it's a practice like anything, right? So it's an
Yeah.
awareness. And what we do is, number one, we bring an awareness and understanding. Most women don't understand the significance of balancing the mind, body, spirit. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're able to, number one, bring an awareness, number two, guide them in how you can do that at any stage. It doesn't matter if it's, if you're just planning, or if you're pregnant, or if you're about to deliver, or in your postpartum period, at any stage that you can really work with somebody to balance their mind, body, spirit
Mm.
through really education, empowerment, understanding, and then the spiritual practices, and then the body, which is, what we ingest, what we eat, how we care for our bodies, how
Yeah.
important that is. And so if you think about, if you're saying, let's say as a new mom, and you have this baby that you need to care for and really kind of just give your whole self to, and you're going on little to no sleep, is like, how do you still balance that mind, body, spirit to get through those moments, as you were
Yes.
saying, like people that suffer from postpartum depression? Obviously there needs to be lots of resources for families, lots of easy, accessible care. That's always been my biggest, what I've really fought for the most is, how do we give easy, accessible care to everybody? Everyone's deserving, regardless of,
Yes.
you know, regardless of where you live, who you are, how much money or how little money you have. Everybody deserves accessible care.
Yes.
And but having that connection, which was so important, is connect at some point, and then you have this new baby and you're just too busy. I mean, to even get to a doctor's appointment, let alone, try to
Oh, I
call me
bet.
up and be like, hey, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, I'm not sure what to do. But us actually checking in with them, meeting them, I say that we need to meet families where they're at. We don't need to make them come to us where we're at. And so, meeting that person, what we found through a lot of our beta testers when we first started this was they love the fact that we reached out to them. So we were the ones that were making the connection. We were the ones that was checking in on them on a regular basis, or sending them information like, here's what to expect, or here's some of the things that you can do today. And that was really helpful. So beautiful. I could just do a quick example. One of my clients, she was postpartum, and she had a complication of pregnancy. So actually complication of postpartum. So she ended up getting fluid in her lungs and cardiomyopathy, so her heart got really big, and so she was having a really hard time, and she didn't really know where to go. Doctor wasn't answering her phone calls, couldn't really get a hold of anybody, so she reached out to me. I gave her direction to go to the emergency room, so her care started from that point. Now, her medical care was cared for by her providers, but her spiritual and her mind was not being cared for. So she was really, after days and days of not recovering and feeling really bad, she then started to develop some depression, as you would anticipate going through all that, not being able to get off the couch. She was an avid runner, she hiked all the time, and now she's stuck in the house and, short of breath and can't barely take care of her baby. So she called me and said she was having a really hard time. Actually, she didn't call me, I checked in on her. How are you doing? Yeah. I'm having a really hard time. I'm just getting really depressed, sitting on the couch, not being able to do anything. So I said, well, let's refocus on balancing your mind, body, spirit. And how do we do that? Let's talk about your fears. Let's talk about what's going on right now. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And then let's activate your spirit again. So let's go do simple things. In the morning and afternoon, I want you to go outside and just sit in the sun and get some sunlight therapy twice a day. And then I want you once a day just to write before you go to bed something that you're grateful for. That's it. She just needed that reminder, and she was like, and I am not kidding you, within days, she's like, I just went for a hike. I just went for a walk. I mean, it just shifted everything. And how important it is, like, you can treat the body, we can treat an ailment, but if we don't treat the whole human person, it's not as effective. It'll eventually probably get better, but it's not going to get better like it should unless we do have that holistic approach to care in every aspect.
Yeah. Well, and I think, we both know that physical ailments are a manifestation of those emotional, those spiritual ailments. Right. And so I like the appreciation for everything being so interconnected is just so cool to see, especially in a world where I think for a very long time women have always felt I'll speak for myself, I don't feel always in control of my body in the world that we live in, right? Whether it be I'm having a baby or I'm not. And so it's cool to see that we're trying to heal a whole person, not just the association of I'm a girl and I have a body and we got to take care of this, Right. There's so much more than just that.
And it is really hard because unfortunately in healthcare, especially in like tertiary healthcare side, like hospitals. Yeah. And once again, I'm not going to, I guess I'm just going to say it the way it is because it's just our bodies aren't our bodies in hospitals, I mean, it's 2024 and we're just starting to train doctors and nurses just to ask permission to do a vaginal exam. Yeah. 2024 and we're asking. That means that before this we were going in and putting our fingers in someone's vagina without consent. And that was normal. And that still happens every single shift in work.
The clinic that I go to for primary care and gyne, last time I was in there, she asked me consent for the breast exam, for the vaginal exam, the pelvic floor exam. I was like, what the hell? I was so surprised, in the most pleasant way. I was literally taken aback that, I was like, oh my God, you care about the fact that I don't feel comfortable with XYZ. Or I do,
Right. Yeah. Well, and the fact is that you were surprised. Well, you were surprised.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the saddest part, that you were surprised. We have been so conditioned as women that we are surprised when somebody asks if they can do a pap smear or a pelvic exam on us. We're like, what? You ask permission? What are you? You know, and not only do you ask permission, but then when I say stop, you stop, because that's another thing in obstetrical care.
Wow.
Is you can be in the midst of an exam and the patient says stop, and they continue and continue. Wait, I'm almost done, and they keep going and going and going.
Oh, that gives me the shivers.
And that's just those little bits of, like, we strip that power away from women. We strip it, and, like, I like to say it's like micro damage. We do micro damage. We don't go in and say, I'm going to assault you. I'm going to, take your power away. I'm going to abuse you and all these. We don't do that. We do like micro damage. And so it's like these little things that add up. Like, no, you can't get out of bed. No, you can't lay on that side. No, you can't do this. You can't do that. No, you have to be on the monitor.
Yeah.
I had this, I like to do examples, so I'm not just saying it because it's my personal experience. I had this patient recently, and the last year. I ended up admitting her. She wanted a unmedicated delivery, so she was going to be induced all night. She was difficult to monitor the baby. We always have to keep the baby on the monitor at all times. So I did my spiel about, mind, body, spirit, express your fears, understand, be aware, body movement, trust what you need to do, and then spirit, like really just, have that intuition and trust that you are going to do what you've been designed to do. And I go home, I come back the next morning, she's been 6 centimeters all night long, and she's in bed, and I said, have you gotten up? And she's like, no, the nurse wouldn't let me up. I'm like, what do you mean she wouldn't let you up? She's like, well, she said she couldn't monitor me, the baby, unless I was in bed. So for 12 hours, she was it's like, it wasn't like you have, of course, as a mom, you're like, oh, you have to monitor my baby to make sure it's okay. Okay. And so you're not going to question that, right? So it's like this authority now, like you're my boss and you're telling me what to do, versus partnering with the family and working together as a team and meeting her where she was at. What do you need? How can I support you? And so I said, oh, no, you can get up. What do you want to do? She's like, well, I want to do this. I'm like, let's do it. She delivered an hour later. Hour later. Just by empowering her and giving her control back.
Right.
It's like so simple as nurses. Like all we have to do is empower families, listen to what they want, what their wish is, what their birth dream is. And then we need to honor that. Yeah. And we need to protect that. And we need to surround them with this safety net of knowing that we're going to protect them. Right. And that then things just start to flow. It just like totally starts to just move in the direction it should go in. And it kind of just makes me sad that it is really that simple, but it's rarely done.
Yeah. Well, and it's I understand the perspective of protecting, a baby and the mom, right? There's two individuals involved in this. But to your point, like mom usually does know what needs to happen. Yeah, absolutely. And granted, complications happen, that's okay, but nobody can predict those, right? Not even the nurse who has all the expertise and background, or the doctor, right? No. So it's always that, it's going to be a high risk environment, but you still have to honor what that person's body and heart is telling them. Yeah.
And also partnering, even if there is an emergency, that emergency can be, you can work together as a team and not as like, that this is just human flesh laying in the bed that and I get it, you're trying to save a life, and that is number one priority, but it shouldn't be your driving force, and everything you do is fear-based. If you're doing it because if you're doing it because you're afraid, it's probably not the right thing to do. Like once again, like if we're talking about the what ifs, right? What if this? What if that? If that's what's driving your care, then you need to step back and reevaluate your care, because that shouldn't drive your care. The what if should never be the reason why you make decisions in work or in life. Yeah.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of like feminine intuition, divine feminine energy, right? You use, to describe your company, you use the word femtech. And I have never heard that word before up until, we've chatted. Can you tell us what that is and like what's going on in that industry, that world? Because I think it's really empowering as a woman to hear that there is a whole ass movement and industry positively being built. Like we always hear about things like the pink tax where tampons cost more money, or like little things like that, that to your point have always taken away our power in some regard, because we are female or identify that way. But hearing about femtech, it's like, what is this new, or is it new? I don't even know what question I'm asking you now. I just want to know what it is, because it excites me so much to hear that that's a focus of more than likely a lot of women.
Yep. So femtech is any technology that is geared to women's health. That's what femtech is.
Okay.
So it's all geared into everything technologically, any technology that is for women's health, and it is, apps, virtual care. I mean, anything. And that's really the movement.
Devices, I assume.
Like how do we, and obviously a lot of the technology that's created for women is made by women, because I think a lot of us are just tired of like somebody making something that doesn't understand what needs to be done on a personal level. And so a lot of the development is coming from women. So women are really kind of just stepping up in this, in a market that really wasn't driven by women. It was male driven, masculinely driven. Even the women in that industry were masculinely driven. And so now it's
have to be.
Well, I mean, hopefully things are shifting. That's all I have to say.
Agreed. We've had to be because now so many women are starting to say, hey, how do you run your company? And if you run your company this way, I'm not interested. Women are starting to know their value in the corporate world. I've met a lot of women who have actually very high ranking positions, very high level corporate positions, that said, I'm not interested anymore. I'm not interested in being abused and violated for the sake of $1. So they've stepped away, and a lot more women are doing that. They're stepping away from those positions, and then they're creating more of an industry that's like divinely, like femininely driven. So more of like, hey, it's kind of how when I created my company and how I continue to run my company is through trust. So I'm trusting that my spirit guides, God will kind of direct me in the path that I need to go to reach whoever I need to reach, whoever that is. Little, small, however many, few people, a lot of people, I will continue to reach who I need to. And kind of femtech is like, I mean, I think with everything, it starts out with like geared towards women and women's health, and then everybody gets whim of it, and it's like, oh look, there's money involved, and then it starts to like turn into this, it starts to like gear this way again. So it's like trying to push it back, like, no, this is really about women's health. And when I was thinking about what I was going to tell you about femtech and how wonderful it is, and how amazing that women are finally getting the spotlight on them and our health, and how important it is, and we're worth the care. Like I said, I think everybody deserves exceptional care. And one of the things I was thinking is the only disadvantage to that is the loss of the human touch. So it's just, I mean, it's wonderful that we have the technology we have. Absolutely.
And that we can do our period trackers and our hormone balancers, and we can do all those things, which is great. But what's even better is that, like, to have that human experience with somebody we trust. Being able to get online with somebody and be able to connect with somebody that understands what we're going through. So if it's somebody that's going through breast cancer treatment, to be able to have that guide that's able to really support and love them and give them a safe journey through that treatment. And how do we connect the two? I mean, that's really what I am trying to do, is like, having all the technology, getting all the information you need from that standpoint, but then also having the human touch of, nurses that are experienced, that can really guide you, understand you, and support you through that.
That's such a beautiful way of putting it. It's like taking back that autonomy that a lot of women feel robbed of already, right? That independence to say, I can take control of whatever it is, like my mind, my body, and then The second part of that, though, is the technology still leads to community, or
Right.
ideally does so, right? Like,
Right.
you see all those posts and the memes, and I'm sure you've seen Barbie and stuff like that, like that
Mm-hmm.
sensation or that description of girlhood and what it means to be a woman. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I think of it personally, it is experiencing what womanhood is with other women. And that
Right.
feeling of like being able to come together and create and like love and
Mm-hmm.
nurture,
Mm-hmm.
not only our families and the people that we love, but each other as well.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, like, even though there's technology involved, to your point, like, I hope we always keep that eye on that prize of like, what are we
Yeah.
truly here to do, is still to connect. um,
Mm-hmm.
and men are fantastic as well, but like, there's
Yeah.
something so special about being a woman.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I
I
hope
love it.
that it doesn't swing. We went from, a lot of, in-person care and groups, in-person support groups and in-person childbirth classes, all those things where
Yeah.
we were all together.
Oh
And
my
since
God.
COVID, a lot of things are going virtual. So it's like virtual
Yeah.
childbirth classes, virtual care, virtual education. And there is, now I feel like it's like, now there are all these new apps where you get text messages for education. So you get this text message
Mm-hmm.
with all this, I'm your personal this, and boom, and like you have to read it, but you don't really know who's behind that. And
Right.
I just hope that it doesn't swing so far in with technology that we then lose the human touch of just
Sure.
caring and compassion, and that
Mm.
somehow we can then meet back in the middle, and that we stay focused on the importance of interconnectedness, that we all stay connected, and that we're all here for this human experience of compassion and sharing, relationship, and all those things are
Yeah.
just as important to our healing, that we have relationship with
Yes.
whoever's caring for us. um, yeah, but that's femtech in a nutshell.
I love it. Go Femtech. Woo.
Oh, femtech.
Awesome.
Girl
To
power.
wrap up our, yeah, girl power, always. To wrap up our conversation, I have a few quick little rapid fire questions I'd love to ask
Okay.
you.
Okay.
The first is, speaking of human experience, what is your favorite part about the human experience for you?
Connection.
Mm.
For me, the human experience, one of the things that I'm really has become very important to me is, some people may look at me and say that I'm, what have I been called? Like a gypsy. I've been called like I'm kind of just like fluttering all over. I never stay put. I'm always wondering like where's Berdette going to be the next? Where is she going to work next? Where is she going to live next? Kind of all over the place. And the reason why that has become so important to me, I did it in the beginning I was running initially when I started for a lot of my own personal pain,
Mm.
and professional pain, believe it or not, because it was during COVID and I had faced one of my first maternal deaths due to COVID. So that was very painful. And I started questioning, if anyone in healthcare knows, during COVID, humanity was lost. It was stripped from us. So we weren't able to really care for patients anymore. And we had to just watch suffering and not be present for those suffering and dying
Oh,
alone.
God.
And so that was really painful for me. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I ran. And in that running, I started to meet these amazing humans. Like people I would have never in a million years had a relationship with if I wasn't stepping outside my comfort zone of the day in, day out routine of life. So I had to be very uncomfortable. And so the next time I was like, oh, I'm going to be really uncomfortable. And now I'm going to go here. And I met some more amazing people. And I'm like, well, now I'm going to go to this next. And now it's become this like, where can I go? Because every time I go somewhere, I have these beautiful human experiences with people that I just would never in a million years ever be able to meet unless I stepped out of my comfort and I stepped into discomfort, because the people have been like so amazing. So that to me is like human experience for me, is just meeting some amazing souls and growing and learning and connecting. And I just feel so like that's one of the things that I'm the most grateful for, is that I've met some just beautiful
Cool people. I love
Yeah.
that. So cool. Why do you think spiritual connection is important?
I think feeding our soul, it's who we are as humans. It's why we're here, is to connect spiritually with others. There's this feeling, probably you're familiar, and anyone that has any spiritual connection is like, once you leave a moment of connecting spiritually with somebody on any level, if that's through a breath work, if that's through a conversation, having a cup of coffee, something activates inside you. It's like your spirit then becomes your guiding force. No longer is your mind or your body what controls you or guides you. All of a sudden your spirit steps up and it's like, hey,
whoa,
come with me.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I'll show you.
I'll show you where to go. And it's like, I want more of that. And the more you feel that, the more you want it. And the more you want to just be, and then it starts to become really uncomfortable when you step out of it and you start going into your mind, or you go into anything that's guiding you other than your spirit. You're like, oh, I don't really like this feeling. And how do I get back to that? And that spiritual connection is, how do I get back to that? Oh, let me call Caitlin up and let's have a conversation, and I'll be back to it. Right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Yeah, but that's
the discernment between the mind and the spirit is like I said earlier, just it's so hard to comprehend for us humans. Like, we want to know and understand everything, but it's like, girl, your soul's got you. Like, let it happen. Let it do its thing, and trust. And you'll be in the right spot at the right time.
And it doesn't matter good or bad. It doesn't matter, because there is no such thing. There is no such thing as good or bad. It's
all perfect is the statement I'm using right now, and probably will use for the rest of my life. It's all perfect.
All where it should be.
Is there a book or resource that you would recommend for our listeners who, either maybe are pregnant or considering conceiving, or even just about, how you've learned to be more connected with yourself, so that they can learn a little bit more for themselves?
I have not found, I did lots of researching on mind, body, spirit in the effects during labor and delivery and the outcomes. There's nothing. This is like this is one of the reasons why it's been really hard to have people jump on board, because it is a complete new concept that nobody's ever talked about.
Yeah.
So, and anytime there's a new concept and then you bring that into the medical world, the woo-woo,
of course.
It's not happening. So I can't say that there is any particular book that you can read, but I do think, anytime learning anything about, balancing the spirit, if you're pregnant and you want more information and why it's important, definitely you can hop on my website. There's free information there for it. But then also just, really mind, body, spirit balancing isn't about pregnancy. It's about how we all as humans should, that's what we should be striving for. That's what we should be constantly, daily working towards, is how do I balance this? What do I need today? Because we're never always going to be balanced, right? We're going to have days that our spirit is just in the forefront and our mind is taking over, or our body's not feeling good. We always have to be evaluating ourselves. Like, what is it? Why am I feeling off today? Well, I know, because I've been eating like crap for the last week. I haven't exercised all week. So then okay, now I know. Or, there's people that go to the gym every single day and eat wonderfully, but they haven't done any spiritual practicing whatsoever, and they're still not whole. So it's really just doing a daily inventory of like, what do I need today? What needs to be fed today? And sometimes that is your mind. You need knowledge.
Beautiful.
You need to learn. You need information. And so if you're pregnant and you are fearful, a lot of fear comes from lack of knowledge. So you just learn more about the areas you need, and then also just having a very clear vision of how you want your delivery to go. Don't surrender to others. And I know we say trust the process, but you also have to have a clear vision and not walking in, allowing a stranger to really take control of your experience. Be able to communicate, understand, and know what you want for your delivery. And, that's empowering in itself.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that advice. That's like perfect. Cool.
Thanks.
And where can our listeners find you? social media, website, all that good stuff.
Yep. So so it's MB&Sphere, so it's like M, mind, body, B, and then sphere is like the shape, the sphere.com. You can find any social media, website, we're all there.
Beautiful. Well, Berdette, thank you for a lovely conversation. This is so fun. I love learning from you because I think we're at very different stages of life, right? And just to hear your wisdom and some of that knowing that you have and the curiosity that I have specifically around like, you know, becoming a mother is just, it's so cool to hear and be in your presence. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And like I said, success to me is just an awareness of the fact, Caitlin, that you have an awareness of how important it is. And that your, you know, baby spirit is already there lingering around you and you're connecting with that. And, you know, just the you can see like you're excited at whenever it's going to happen, but the excitement of a baby and knowing that you have full control over your experience is like, to me, success.
It's very empowering to hear that, you know, especially with some of the stuff that's going on in Arizona right now. It's really refreshing to know that there are women standing up everywhere to make sure that we as women feel loved, cared for, and appreciated for not all that we do, but all that we are, and protected. Yeah,
we deserve that.
Amen. We sure do.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.